So to start, I have to disclose that I am a recovering politician, and it's hard for me to say hello in less than 8 minutes. So this is a challenge, but I will do my best. Like so many of us here, I am really passionate about the idea of transforming learning and creating schools that are truly joyful and engaging and meaningful for kids and for teachers. And I've come to the conclusion, which I want to talk about, that the ideas that we're exploring today will remain isolated examples unless we fundamentally change the frame through which we hold schools accountable. That we have a system in this country that has warped learning and constrained learning at a time that we need to explode the kind of innovations that we're exploring today. So I want to talk about kind of my journey to get to that conclusion and give us an idea of hope to think about. I had the pleasure, to use that word, of serving on the Los Angeles Board of Education at a time when school-based management was a big idea, and the concept of empowering schools at the local level to be much more in control of their own destiny. And during that time, we gave approval to the very first charter schools in California that have since then taken off. But I've come to realize that that autonomy is not enough, that giving local schools freedom is important, it's a necessary step, but it's not sufficient. That often schools would tinker around the edges but not change the meat and substance of teaching and learning in the classroom because they were constrained by tradition, but constrained by accountability systems that define very narrowly what success is and what matters. So after the school board, I had the privilege to work at the J. Paul Getty Trust around the time we were building and opening the Getty Center here in LA. That was quite a transition from the LA School Board to the Getty. We'll leave that for another day. But I got a lot smarter about the value of arts education through somebody named Elliot Eisner, who's a real leading thinker on these issues. That the arts are more than arts and crafts or recreation, but the arts are a way that we transmit key ideas of human civilization. And if you think about eliminating the arts from our world, how little we would know about anything, particularly things that took place a long time ago. And the Getty worked hard nationally and in California and locally to advance arts education. We did work all over, including with Grandview Elementary in Manhattan Beach. Did a lot of good, but fundamentally didn't change the overall paradigm where the arts remained somewhat marginalized in American schools. After the Getty, about 10 years ago, I came to the Music Center, which many of you may know for Walt Disney Concert Hall or the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion or other theaters. But the core of our mission is working with schools throughout LA, public and private schools, to strengthen arts education, particularly in the performing arts. And what is so heartening is to know how many teachers and principals and superintendents and school board members, particularly in our communities, are hungry for a more well-rounded curriculum, feel guilty that the arts have been watered down or eliminated or shunted or put off altogether. And we do work that I'm very proud of at the Music Center in empowering teachers in particular to integrate the arts, to engage kids in much more meaningful ways, to help kids find success who have been defined by schooling as not successful. And we're very proud of that work. But what concerns me and should concern all of us is that as we work with schools and districts throughout Los Angeles, teachers feel they're engaging in an act of rebellion, that they feel so incredibly pressured right now under something called the No Child Left Behind Act, which is federal law, that their lives are on the line and the school's success is on the line, and principals and superintendents and everybody, based on reading and math scores. And while their heart and souls yearn for a kind of innovative version of schooling, as we've explored today, at a very deep level, they're afraid of that and feel that they don't have license or permission to do that, or any minute spent doing something that is truly fun and engaging for kids must result in weakened test scores at the end of the day and can only be a bad thing. I'm only overstating that slightly, because particularly in the lowest performing schools, there is a climate of fear, there's a climate that has sucked the joy and engagement out of our schools, and there's a hunger for something different. So the question is what to do about it. And I got excited a year or so ago to read in the state of Massachusetts that a legislator there proposed the idea of a creativity index to measure the success of schools, which just caught my eye. And then it caught my eye that that was passed and signed into law by the governor of Massachusetts fairly recently. And they're now in the process of taking the concept and bringing it to life. What does that really mean? How do we operationalize that? How do we do that in a way that can make sense? But I'm very intrigued by that idea. And in work here in California that I'm involved in, we took the idea, which I think is in the public domain, this creativity idea, and embedded it in a bill that was passed by the California legislature this year that would fundamentally reframe school accountability in California from just reading and math scores to a much broader set of measures, including this idea of a creativity index. And I was incredibly thrilled that the legislature was responsive. It got in the bill. The bill passed our Assembly and Senate and went to the governor's desk. I'm not going to tell you he vetoed the bill because that would make us all sad and frustrated maybe, but our governor, who I think is a thoughtful guy, did veto that bill, in part because he said putting more speedometers on a car won't make it go faster, was his line in the veto message. But I remain hopeful that we can do that and that this is a smart governor who's open to continuing the conversation. So I just want to leave you with that what if we didn't measure our schools only by math and reading scores, but there was this creativity index? What if schools, teachers, principals, school board superintendents got awards and prizes for having the very most creative kids and teachers? And what if other principals were called on the carpet and said, what am I doing wrong? And someone looked them in the eye and said, you're not doing enough to foster the creativity of their kids, and that's why the principal was dismissed or the school was taken over. That's how we need to change this conversation. It is within our reach, but if all of us join together and speak up, I think we can make that happen. And I'll just leave you with something I heard the other day which really caught me. In the meantime, we don't yet have the creativity index and all that would go with it. How could we measure what a quality school is in a very simple, concrete, measurable way? And this person said, is the rate at which kids rush in the morning greater than the rate that they leave at the end of the day? Thank you very much.